Okay. Hello, everyone. Good evening. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to the 75th of hopefully many episodes of Bard Advice. My name is Charles, or Chaz, or Yazek, or the DM, or the Bard, however you may know me. I go by many names. And I'm the host of this here podcast, Bard Advice. It's a D&D slash TTRPG slash nerd-centric podcast where we talk about all kinds of things ranging from tabletop RPGs to anime to video games to sports, all kinds of stuff. Just bard stuff, barding around. Hope everybody is doing well. Happy Friday. Let's see. So, we've got some questions this evening. We've got several questions as well as a follow-up that I want to get into. At the top of the show, as always, we like to remind everyone of the email, which is bardadvice@gmail.com. It also looks like bardadvice. Please send all of your questions, concerns, complaints, criticisms, critiques, etc. there, bardadvice@gmail.com. Much appreciated. If you want to get some merch, you can do so at manshorts.com. You can also go over to krakendice.com and get yourself a set of our dice. We will be releasing the next set relatively soon. I'd say within the next month or so. Looks like we're coming down to the wire on getting those out. Also, if you'd like to contribute to anything that I'm doing musically, you can do so directly via PayPal, Cash App, or Venmo, all of which are Yazzik, Y-A-H-Z-I-C-K. Also, at the top of the show, we like to thank all of our patrons, our members, subscribers. We're going to ask you to please remember to like, comment, subscribe, turn on notifications, and rate the podcast on your respective platforms. And I think that's all the basic housekeeping stuff. We're doing Art Corner. Don't worry, Pirate. We just haven't gotten there yet. We're getting there now. So, for Art Corner this week, there's two things that I wanted to draw everybody's attention to. By the way, thank you all for joining. It's good to see all of the regulars. Pirate, Puffy Cheeto, Songs here, Ron, I saw Chris, a bunch of Chris's, River. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining. Excuse me. Hopefully I don't do that all night. I've got some running. I've got like some post-nasal drip going on, I guess. I feel okay, but... And thank you very much for the gifted memberships. That's much appreciated. Helps keep this thing going. So, for Art Corner, there are two things that I wanted to draw everybody's attention to this week. The first of which is a new show that I started watching on Hulu. It's called Clipped. And it is the story of the LA Clippers, specifically the fallout from the situation with Donald Sterling several years ago, where he was found on tape saying some, uncouth things, and it was just kind of a big mess. But it's more than just that, right? The story, there's also other drama going on the team and stuff. What's interesting about the series is just how strange some of the choices were for the actual actors for doing, I guess they're supposed to be these basketball players. And it occurs to me that probably one of the reasons that they don't look as much like the people as you would hope them to is that, first of all, you got to find people that are that tall, right? So that lowers your pool tremendously. So like the guy that they've got that plays Blake Griffin, he doesn't really look like Blake Griffin. But it's like if you got to find a guy that's like 6'10" or whatever, your options are kind of limited. So I'm sure the casting did the best they can. Anyway, the show has just come out. It's only, I think, got like 1 or 2 episodes, but it's going to be releasing weekly. I'm really enjoying it as just a basketball fan, and I've found that my wife enjoys these kind of things just for the general history of it. Just because, that's another one of the reasons I like sports, is because a lot of the fascination is just in the history of, real events. So, it's pretty interesting stuff. The other thing that I wanted to point out to everybody, if you didn't know, any gamers out there, this new game that came out a few weeks ago by Ubisoft, it's called XDefiant, and ye boy howdy is it fun. It is free to play. So it's a little freemium going on because you kind of have to grind to open the weapons and the attachments and stuff. But I describe it as sort of a combination between the better Call of Duties, or at least in my experience, the more enjoyable Call of Duties, and Halo. It's real fun. There's like different factions, and then the different factions have different abilities, and they've got like different game modes, and the maps are really fun. I know everybody's been like really obsessed with Helldivers, and I'll probably find myself in that boat eventually at some point. But XDefiant, super fun. Yes, it's FPS. It's a blast. I've had a lot of fun playing it the last couple of days with my friend Alex, so I highly recommend it. No, it's more like a Call of Duty, Halo-y type situation. So they have like game types that are like escort is one of the game types where you kind of have to move this robot dog across the map and the other team's trying to stop you. And then they have like domination, and there's one called Hotshot that's kind of like King of the Hill, like, or like the dog tag missions. It's just like a fun shooter, and it's like, 5 to 15 minute matches that move by pretty quickly, and I don't know, it's fun. I recommend checking it out. Also, before I forget, I don't have like more specific details than what I'm about to give. I'll definitely be talking more about it over the next few episodes of the pod. But on Saturday, June the 22nd, we are doing a fan meetup hangout slash session thing in Jacksonville. So that is, 2 weeks from tomorrow? It's free RPG day. We're going to be hanging out at the Coliseum of Comics over on Roosevelt from 2 to 4 in the afternoon. So it's a Saturday, June 22nd. We'll be hanging out there. So if you're in the Jacksonville area, please stop by. It'll be real fun. I think that we're going to have some of our older shirts for sale if anybody wants those. But more importantly, we're just going to kind of be hanging out, just meeting anybody and talking to anybody and chatting to anybody that wants to, because it's been several years since we've done anything like that, and Jay mentioned it to me. So we've got a friend that works over there, that place, the Coliseum of Comics, so she's going to kind of set everything up, and we're just going to go set up a table and hang out with people, that anybody that wants to come hang out. So just keep your eyes and ears open for any more specific details on that. And I think that's everything. That's our corner. We thanked everybody. We told everybody to do the stuff. So I think we can move into the questions. So the first question of the evening is from Ricky. And Ricky asks, "Hey DM, longtime fan of the channel here. My question involves collecting. In addition to Magic, Pokemon, and baseball cards, I also collect stamps. As you can imagine, I'm pretty excited about the new D&D themed Forever stamps that are set to release this fall. Do you collect anything? Thanks in advance." Or thank you in advance, rather. Thank you for the question, Ricky. I am not too much of a collector. Also, wanted to just show everybody the stamps that are going to be coming out. It looks like they're going to be releasing them at like Gen Con August 1st, I think, is their official release date. So those are pretty cool. Just give me 1 second. Okay, didn't mean to disappear. Just needed to blow my nose. Hopefully that'll help. But yeah, so there's the D&D Forever stamps. I'm not much of a collector of things other than reindeer, but that's more of like a seasonal collection type thing. So I do collect those, but it's really just for like decorative purposes, like for Christmas. So if anything, anybody in the chat, does anybody out there collect stuff? Because other than reindeer, I'm not much of a collector. I don't think I'm organized or disciplined enough to take care of things like that, like coins or like baseball cards. I think maybe at one point in my childhood I collected things like Pokemon cards or Pogs or stuff, but nothing that I really took into my adulthood other than the reindeer. So need to go buy stamps. Yeah, I actually might get a sheet of those stamps just for myself, just to have, because that's kind of a cool thing. They've got like what all's on there. One of them, it looks like, it's got the original. Isn't that like that's the cover of the Art of D&D? And then actually, I don't know if people could see my mouse, but there's like a big purple worm. Some dragons, lots of dragons. Beloved characters. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, I'm not too big of a collector. What do people collect out there? Magic and Pokemon cards, yeah. Do books count as a collection? I think so. I mean, if it's something that you're passionate about. Whoa, lots of collectors. Collect pins, stickers, crushed pennies, miscellaneous guitars, PC monitors, World War II era firearms. That's cool. Better to just collect cash. I hear that. Oh man, my mouse is all messed up. Bunch of old sports cards, magic cards, sand from beaches. That's pretty cool. I've actually known a few people that have done that before. No Beholder. Yeah, I know, right? That seems odd to me. I was wondering if you could share your thoughts and ideas on GM handouts that are not letters and documents. What do you mean by that? My only collection is a huge box of phone chargers. Still play Magic the Gathering. I never could get into Magic. You know, I had a cousin who has since passed, but he was into Magic. And he tried to teach me one time, and I just couldn't figure it out. I didn't get it. It's too much. Once he started turning cards and stuff, I was like, wait a minute, man. Like, Pokemon was much more straightforward. If books count, you have over 1,000 books. Dang. Yeah, my book collection has lessened over the years. I've gotten rid of a lot of them, but I still have, like, a lot of the ones that I really love I've still got. Not as collectibles. Not as collectibles. I mean, what other handouts would you do if your players got sick of document handouts? I don't know, man. I usually email people. Just as far as, like, info about the game. More books than we have shelf space. Knife and gun collection. I feel like that's really common, like, with collections, like weapons or coins. I guess it's like the history of it. Cards, too. Books. Played Magic the Gathering, couldn't afford. Later, a coworker got me back in. Stopped after he spent $5,000 in 2 months. Yikes. And I've heard that's worse now, right? Because they're, like, flooding the market with packs. So it's like the people can't keep up with it. It's too expensive. It's unfortunate. In-game handouts, like in-universe items. Oh, I see what you're saying. Right. You mean as far as just, like, stuff to keep track of? Well, I mean, they need their stats, right? Maybe I'm not understanding the question. Father-in-law has comics. Yeah, I've got friends that collect records and comic books. Yeah, it's ridiculous. That I never got into the Magic, so. But we've got to keep moving because we've got more questions and there's a follow-up, and then we also want to do a little chat as well. But thank you for the question, Ricky. As I said, I'm not a very big collector other than the reindeer, but I think it's cool. I think it's a cool thing people do. All right, so the next question is from Shane, I think. Yep. And Shane asks, hello, Charles. I hope this email finds you well. I've been a D&D player since 2015. I've DM'd a one-shot or two over the years, but in a few weeks I'll be DMing my first campaign. It's a homebrew. My question is, in creating villains, what is your advice for giving them believable motivations and goals? Looking forward to what you and chat have to say. Thanks. Thank you for the question, Shane. I feel like I've had a question very similar to this before. So I wrote some stuff about it. And chat, feel free to pop off on your recommendations for believable and captivating motivations and goals for monsters and or villains. But this is what I wrote. My biggest piece of advice would be to use real-life inspiration. I think that one of the biggest misconceptions, both in the game and something certainly we see in regular life all the time, is that there's a misconception, I think, by a lot of people that there is a standard of behavior or morality, right? So, and part of the disconnect is that, in my opinion at least, I don't think there really is a standard. I think people are products of their environment. Their opinions and motivations are unique to their experience. you know, you see it in politics a lot. Like I'll see, you know, one side or the other post something about the other side, and it's like, can you believe they did this? And it's like supposed to be some sort of thing that like changes people's mind, and it's like, well, that's operating under the pretense that, you know, whoever you're showing that to thinks that that behavior is wrong. Right? Does that make sense? Like, okay, so like here's an example. I made a TikTok about this once. Like Mr. Jones is the CEO of Big Fat Money Bags Incorporated. And in his everyday life and decision making, he prioritizes money over safety or money over human life. I don't think that that's good. I wouldn't consider that person a good person or a good CEO. I think that's crazy. But there's lots of people that operate that way. And so anyway, as a result, Mr. Jones, because he prioritizes profit over everything, quarterly, he continues to bring back record profits to his shareholders. Now, do the shareholders care that the CEO prioritizes money over safety? Maybe if there's an event that happens that affects the bottom line, but not in the strictest sense, right? Like people that are making money on stocks aren't losing sleep over like what nefarious activities the CEOs of those companies could be up to because they're getting their stock money. So the reason I bring all of this up is I think that the best villains, people assume that the best villains are universally hated. And I don't think that that's true, because if that were true, they wouldn't exist. They certainly wouldn't be successful if they were universally hated. So you look at people like the Joker or Thanos or Darth Vader, like according to the story, they're supposed to be the clear villain of the story, but there's plenty of people that I've had conversations with that love those characters, and some people even agree with their ideas. The worst leaders in history had support, at least at some point. So I guess the short answer is I think the best villains are the ones that are relatable or have the capability to be relatable based on the circumstances, because that's what gives them their power in the first place. If everyone had the same standards of behavior or good and evil, then we wouldn't even have conflict. The reason that we do is that people have different standards. So my recommendation would be to craft your villains as people with backstories and experiences that led them to believe that they are justified in their behaviors. That will give them depth, and it will, I think, present to the players a genuine crossroads of having a real opinion about them, both in and out of character. So let's see what chat's saying after I'm done. That was my monologue answer, but let's see. Put yourself in the villain's shoes. How would you handle things they've gone through? How would you lash out accordingly? Almost no one thinks of themselves as a villain in their own minds. They may be the heroes. That's a great point too, Kirk. Most villains, right, don't consider themselves to be. And this is one of the reasons I like anime, right? Because anime analyzes this stuff. A lot of Western content really doesn't. With most Western content, it's like, here's a clear bad guy, here's the clear hero, and then we have resolution when the hero defeats the villain. And anime is slightly more complex than that. And that's not to say that, like, no Western media can accomplish that, because I think things do. In fact, my wife and I just started watching that Your Honor show with Cranston, and that presents certainly a lot of moral dilemmas. So I think it can be done, but I think that's what makes it great. Remember that the villain usually sees himself as the hero. The easiest way... Wow. Sorry, gang. My mouse is really messed up. The easiest way to understand the villain is narcissism. And narcissism cannot let themselves be a part of something that's bigger than themselves. It's information. Follow the money. You can look at Batman and see how his actions can be seen as good by some and as bad as others. Best villains are the ones you know you should hate but struggle to. Oh, that's a good point. Yeah. And I think, too, the more relatable that they are, the harder that struggle is, right? Like, think about a show like Breaking Bad. Certainly by the end of that series, Walter White was pretty despicable as a human being, just in terms of, like, the tragedy and death left in his wake. But he is a character, and for most of us as the audience, kind of viewed him as the hero for the bulk of the show. That's like a masterclass in character writing. Somebody like Walter White. The saying, the devil doesn't come dressed in a red cape and pointy horns. He comes as everything you've ever wished for. Once played a live-action Skeletor. It's one of the reasons evil geniuses aren't a real thing, because evil requires a lack of empathy, which equates to a lower IQ. Yeah, but the problem with that is that you don't have to have a good IQ if you have the money, right? So, I mean, I see what you're saying, right? Like, having a high IQ, you probably wouldn't be evil. Whatever that means, right? That's the other thing. It's all subjective. That's how I think you give your villains depth, is if you make them realistic and you base them on, like, real characters or people, and there's that nuance there. There's something that where you can present it to the party in a way where, you know, one of the things I think you're trying to avoid in asking the question is that you don't want it to be a thing where it's just like, well, we're just going to fight this person because they're the villain, because you said that they're the villain and that's the deal. Whereas, like, you know, something like the Rathos BBEG that we fought in the airships campaign, this was like a god from another plane of existence who was seeking to destroy the plane in an attempt to expand his domain. So that was a pretty clear-cut reason for us to get involved from a motivation standpoint, because it's like, whoa, this we'll all be dead if we don't stop him. So Walter White was no more. There was only Heisenberg. They aren't geniuses. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's interesting. It also depends on what the rules of your world are, too, right? Like, you know, in most of the modern world, profit is, certainly in this country, profit's like number one. And morality, questions of morality typically come after that. So it's tough when you're talking about, like, whether someone's successful, right? Because, like, there's plenty of people that are successful economically, but maybe not morally. But again, that's subjective, you know? Like, I think of somebody like that Robert Durst guy, the Jinx guy, the billionaire murderer. You know, that guy certainly didn't think that he was a bad person. I would imagine if he thought that what he was doing was wrong, is that he would have stopped, unless he felt like he couldn't stop, in which case, you know, seek therapy. But it's just to say that, like, villains are just people too. You know, I think that over the course of history, it's easy to, like, put people up into a pedestal or a representatory soapbox. Is representatory a word? I don't know. It is in my head. On a soapbox that represents an idea or a group of people. And so, you know, that's my beef with people complaining about politicians, is that it's like, they get voted for, man. They didn't just, like, sneak into office in the middle of the night. Other people agreed with the ideas that person was saying, and thus that person was elected. Now, you can say that you don't like the job that they've been doing, but a lot of people act like, oh, these people don't represent us. It's like, actually, that's exactly what they do. And if you want to change who represents you, you have the choice to do that pretty frequently. All right, I don't want to get too far off topic and, like, into the weeds, but yeah, I think that there's an answer in there for you. I think, like, you know, keeping them realistic, like people. Nobody said either side wants the other dead either. Keep in mind, with a sympathetic villain, you run the risk of the party siding with them. Yeah, that's true. That's true. But that might not be not be the worst thing, right? I mean, that could lead itself to good RP, because who knows what other NPCs you've got in there. All right. Well, thank you for the question, Shane. And best of luck to you in your campaign. Send us an update, please. All right, so the next question that we have is from Chris, as we typically have each week. And Chris asks, we all have one event that makes us realize we're old, be it high school reunions, music becoming oldies, etc. What event did you feel made you go, yep, I'm old? Thank you for the question, Chris. First of all, that's wild that you said that about reunions, because my 20 year is next year, which we can count that kind of as a moment, I guess. But specifically, something happened to me recently that I wanted to talk about that made me do this. And it was when Eminem dropped his new song, Houdini. So there were a couple of reasons that made me feel old. The first and most obvious one was just because of the general nostalgia that it triggered. Because, you know, if you know anything about Eminem, if you've seen the new video, like the Houdini video is almost a shot-for-shot redo of the Without Me video, which was 22 years ago. So, process that. I was in high school, and I remember that album, like, when it came out. I remember getting it when it came out and listening to it, and then when that video came out. And so that was a moment of like, oh, I'm old. And then on top of that, there was a whole nother thing that was going on, which is that a lot of people from my generation, unfortunately, are very much in their back in my day bag. Because, like, first of all, I didn't see that anybody was upset about the Houdini song. I didn't see anybody, like, and later when people told me that there were tons of people that were upset, and I like sought it out specifically, I did see like a couple of videos from people complaining. But for the most part, it's Eminem. Like, the reason that guy's not cancelable is because he's been in the zeitgeist for almost 30 years. Like, if he was ever going to get canceled, it would have been years and years ago. Like, people like Eminem. But I did see a bunch of videos on TikTok of people from my generation, and it was just so goofy. It was just people that were like, oh, man. They're like dancing to the Houdini song on the, you know, it's like the sound on TikTok, and they're like, Gen Z, you don't know nothing about this. Ooh-wee, they're so offended. And I was like, this is kind of cringy, because it's an out-of-touch type thing, where it's just like, first of all, most Gen Zers were born, I think that M hit his popularity when he released Recovery. It's not one of my favorite albums of his, but it's likely his most popular one. Plus, that's when we had like a real weird pivot with hip hop, when it started getting onto the radio like all the time, and like on the pop stations and stuff, like 2009 to like 2011. Gen Z kids were like 12, 13. So when that was out, which is when I started listening to Eminem. So I don't think it's a thing where, like, for one, I don't think it's a thing where they don't know what it is. And for two, I don't think that it's a thing where they get offended. Because in my experience, and maybe it's just because that's how my buddy Alex is, but in my experience, the younger kids are not as quick to trigger, at least with stuff like that. But I just thought that it was just kind of embarrassing that it's like, oh yeah, Eminem woke us all up. And it's like, what have you been, like, in a cave for 20 years? Like, what? We don't have any validity unless there's like something from our generation going on. There's plenty of cool new artists you could listen to and enjoy, but I really like the Houdini song. So that was a thing that made me feel like, oh man, like my generation really has reached that age of, like, you know, in my day, because there was a lot of like people that were complaining about the Houdini track, right? They were like, oh, I can't believe that he would say that about Megan. There was a lot of people from my generation that were like, oh, well, you know, sheesh, you know, you should go listen to Kim. You should go listen to the Marshall Mathers LP if you want to know. And I was like, oh my God, it's happening. We've become the people of, like, you know, back when I was your age. And so that's the specific thing that happened. And then also just like working with Alex, because he's 23. It reminds me of my age a lot, just because there are regularly things that I mention that he doesn't recognize. Like, I'll bring up like an actress or a show or something, and he'll just kind of stare at me like he has no context at all. And it's a thing that, like, was so present in my generation. They haven't canceled him over Criminal yet. They never will. Yeah. Oh, dude, I was just listening to that song. I'm a criminal. Used back in the day when talking to my teenage kids. Recently found my old library card with a strange phone number on it, and you realize you're older than your current area code. Whoa. Dre 2001 was in high school. Let's see. When bending over started to hurt. Or getting up. How about getting up? I found myself like, ugh. I found myself making sounds and feeling stuff in my shoulders and my back and stuff. Could never get behind Eminem. Yeah, I understand that. I think for me, it was just like, I don't know. I was like an angry white kid. So it spoke to me. Just showed one of the kids the roast of Mom Saget. Oh, man. Yeah, and I think also just like throughout time, there's different standards, right? Like my mom and I were talking about that recently. If you watched an episode of like All in the Family, or even like some of the old stuff, like my wife and I like to watch Lucy a lot. And like every now and then there'll be something in there that's just like, whoa, dude. Like if you even joked about that today, it would be like immediately canceled. But back then it was just like standard fare. So I think like Don Rickles, or how about Mickey Rooney? A lot of those guys, like I think that there's just like a, quote unquote standards change over time. So when my cousin turned 21 this year. Oh, geez. Yeah, that's always tough. Another thing, too, now that I think about it, since I work in a vape shop, we have the born on date thing where it's like, your birthday better be after this or before this or whatever. And so that's annoying because that's on 2003 now because it's 21. So as long as you were born after a certain date in 2023, or excuse me, in 2003, whatever today's date is, I guess. That makes you 21, so it's legal. When kids half your age complain about being old. Yeah, I know. And it's all relative, too, right? That's the other thing. I think I spoke about that last week, about how when I was a kid, I felt like people that were in their 20s were so old. And, Alex teases me about, like, about my age. But then also I think of, like, well, I'm not 60. Not that there's anything wrong with being 60, by the way, or any age. It's just a matter of, like, perspective, Hey, that's my word of the year, perspective. Okay, well, let's keep moving on. Thanks, Chris. That was a fun little trip down memory, feeling old lane. The next question of the evening is from Stacy. Got to keep moving because we've got to follow up too. And Stacy asks, will there ever be straight up D&D again on your channel? Thank you for the question, Stacy. Quick and to the point. So, in theory, yes. Ethan, our forever DM, has stopped into my vape shop a few times in the last month or so, and we've discussed it, just kind of like what that would look like. And, he's running a game currently with some friends. As is always, the issue is scheduling. This also might be a good time, I guess, to just in general discuss where we are with the channel. So we had a meeting with our agent today, and I think it looks like we're probably going to shift back to posting the D&D editions bi-weekly. It's more of just a decision of where I'm putting my time, and Justin too. It's not to say that we don't have return or value in producing the D&D editions, but that is the returns on that are diminishing. It's starting to wane, not just from a creative standpoint, but also from a financial one. So you've probably noticed too, by the way, where I feel like we posted a video a week for 3 years straight, and then in the last month or so it's been kind of sporadic. And that has a lot to do with the fact that it's if we don't have an ad on the episode, it's harder for us to justify posting it, just because YouTube is just in the basement now when it comes to ad rev, because everything's about shorts, and that's not really our bag. So when am I going to put out my next gaming rap album? The next rap album that I'll be producing, at least on my own, will be called Ikigai. I have no idea on the time frame on that. I guess that Sunlight technically belongs on that album as a single, so maybe that'll light a fire under me to do it. Song and I are producing the Math Lord album. That should be, I imagine, in the next few weeks, that'll be ready to go. So that'll be cool. I'm on a lot of those tracks. That was real fun to make. And I'd also like to work on him with, making the D&D Christmas Carol album, and then also maybe some bardcore stuff. So I'm always working on the music. But yeah, so on that, if we're posting the D&D editions bi-weekly, that in theory is going to give us more free time to potentially film and produce other stuff, which may or may not include D&D. And it is a thing that I enjoy doing. It's just a matter of whether the timing works for it and whether we can get it all set up. Consider D&D editions that fit the shorts format. That's an interesting point. I've not really thought of it in that way, but yeah, maybe it could very well just be a thing where it's just like short little jokes that could go into the shorts. Drunk Before Noon. Yeah, I thought about doing that too. We talked about doing that on TikTok. And I guess that we could just run it as shorts too. If we just do it a thing where he and I are kind of like talking on FaceTime. Yeah, it's something that's definitely crossed my mind. So I'm hoping that with the little slowdown in the D&D editions, that will free us up time to consider and potentially produce those other kind of things like Drunk Before Noon and other shorts and playing D&D as well, because that would be really fun. And yeah, so that one's done. Thank you for the question. Love to see you on a campaign again. Yeah, and I'd like to do it too. It's tough. It's a weird tightrope to walk because on the one hand, it's a thing that I just genuinely enjoy doing and would just do for free, provided that I had the time and the schedule and stuff in place, which we all know is, the hardest part of the game. But then there's also the element of like, well, is this something that's going to contribute to my income? Because, I have tons of different little streams of money coming in, but the D&D editions and the channel in general, like stuff like this, is one of those. So I've got to keep that in mind as well. It can't just be a thing where it's like, well, let's just play to play for fun, because, it's just like with the Baldur's Gate 3 thing. It's like, yeah, we play it anyway, but then also we can monetize it. So other content you guys would be great. You'll enjoy Drunk Before Noon. Do a 16-part series of DBN shorts that reveal a crazy mystery similar to your previous adventure. Yeah, that could be fun. And also maybe like maybe that's what the D&D Choose Your Own Adventure edition looks like, is just a bunch of shorts. Just a bunch of, because isn't that true where you can connect shorts to videos? I don't know. I'll have to think about it and figure it out. But yes, if possible, it's something that I would like to do. So it'll probably come back one day. Whether that's in the form of just like a one shot or if we do like a full campaign again, I'd say it could come back. All right, let's keep it moving because we've got 3 more questions and a follow-up. We've got to keep it going through. The next question is, thank you for the question, Stacy. The next question is from Kevin. And Kevin asks, hey, Yazek, love your new track, Sunlight. Thanks. I'm probably responsible for at least 100 of the plays since you dropped it. Well, that's kind of you. My question is, if you DM'd a party of pro wrestlers, any era, who would you pick to be at your table and why? Thank you for the question, Kevin. I also wanted to take this opportunity to give kind of a shout out to a question that I didn't put up here for to answer, but I just wanted to mention it. It's from William, because William asked what celebrity D&D table that I would have, and the reason that I didn't want to do it as a full-on question is because I have had that question before, but I thought I would take this time to not only answer Kevin's question about the wrestlers, but to talk about my celebrity table for William, because I don't remember actually offhand what episode that's from. I've been asked it before. So these are the stamps. I got to get these out of the way to show everybody, remind everybody of my dream celebrity D&D table. So these are the people that, if it were up to me, who I would have at my D&D table would be Bobby Lee, Aubrey Plaza, Snoop, Shaq, Weird Al, Zendaya, and Kesha. I think that would be super fun. Probably have a real blast doing that. And so now I did with wrestlers. And to be fair, sure it isn't from Jay. No, because if Jay asked me a wrestling question, it would be like super specific. It wouldn't be as vague as just like, who would your wrestlers be? It would be like, okay, they have to be from this era and have this number of matches or whatever. It'd be like super specific. But I did go ahead and put together a little group quickly of just who I thought I would probably, just on first thought, have at my table. So definitely Chris Jericho, who's one of my favorite all time. I think he's also like one of the better on the mic ever. Rhea Ripley, just because I think she's super cool. I'm like super into like all of her, like her whole vibe. Mick Foley for sure, just because like he's a sweetheart. He's and you know, he's just, You got to have Mick Foley, you know? You can't have wrestling D&D without Mick Foley. I think Kofi Kingston would do really well and have, like, funny, goofy ideas. Lita, I had in there just because, like, she was somebody that came to mind as far as just kind of, like, keeping the party diverse and fun and, like, with wrestlers that I knew and grew up with. The Rock and The Undertaker. And also, honorable mentions that didn't necessarily make that list that might, if I swapped some things around, would be Stone Cold and Shawn Michaels. Because technically, Shawn Michaels is... Mick Foley can come, but he can't bring the sock. What do you mean, Socko? Come on. Shawn Michaels is probably, like, pound for pound my favorite wrestler. But... I don't know. I think the group that I put together was real cool. And probably if I had, like, a little more time, because I got this question, like, late last night. I think if I had a little more time to think about it, it'd probably be slightly different. But I think a lot of them are in there as to who I would have. Like, most definitely on Mick Foley and Chris Jericho. Jericho, just on the mic skills alone. Oh, I forgot about CM Punk. CM Punk would be a pretty crazy role player, I bet you. But the thing is, too, to consider is that, like, these are wrestlers, right? So they're already good role players. They're already at the top of their game in terms of, like, getting into character. So you probably couldn't go wrong with any kind of, like, you know, a big-name wrestler. Booker T, Goldust, which version of The Rock? I'm thinking, like, 96 Rock. 96, 97 Rock, like maybe even before his rise. Certainly not like recent Rock. You need more Arlie Ermy. Was he a wrestler? Roddy Piper? Yeah. Yeah, probably. I think my rap would be popular if I modernized my sound. I don't know about that. I don't know if that's the problem with my... maybe. I don't know. I've been on tons of different beats. I think I might actually have better off just doing more like niche stuff, which is what I'm going to start leaning into. John Cena would make a good... I didn't think of Cena either. You know, what's interesting with Cena is that when he was out and popular, I never really liked his character. It wasn't until, like, later in life when I, like, learned more about him and, like, the kind of stuff, the kind of, like, his charity work and stuff. John Cena's a really cool dude. HBK, Stone Cold, Rock, Undertaker, Booker T, and Mick Foley. Nice. That's good. That's a good one. But yeah, those are my wrestlers. So let's keep things moving. We got 2 more questions and a follow-up, and then we're going to do a little chat. The next question is from Amanda. And Amanda asks, you can choose one spell from any class and are able to cast it in real life. Which spell are you choosing and why? Thank you for the question, Amanda. So, Wish. I don't know what else there would be. Now, I did note some honorable mentions, more than just Wish, but funny enough, Wish is one of my favorite vape juice flavors. Reverse Gravity. Could probably do some pretty powerful stuff with that. Create or Destroy Water, I think, is pretty cool, because you could probably find a high-paying job either providing people water or kind of getting rid of it for whatever job that might be, like flooding maybe. But also, it's kind of a small amount, right? I found that out over the years. It's not like, but I guess you could upcast it. Or Eldritch Blast might be fun, or like a cantrip in general, because like it makes you wonder, like, what does that mean? Can I cast it once a day? Dude, if you could cast Wish once a day, I don't know what else you need. Do you have 25K to cast Wish? Do you need 25K to cast Wish? Hold on a second. What does Wish say? You create an object of up to 25,000 gold pieces in value that isn't a magic item. Hold on. Is this an oversight on my part? No, it's just verbal components. This doesn't say anything about monetary components. Magic Missile, Fireball, Prismatic Wall, Wall of Force, Vicious Mockery. Oh, Vicious Mockery is kind of good. Or Sleep would be kind of cool. If you could just, like, sleep people. I mean, I guess, like, MMA fighters can do that in real life. But, like, if you could just point at somebody and they just go to sleep, it'd be interesting. Prestidigitation. I see Wish in here, yeah. You can cast once per long rest in IRL. Yeah, dude, it's Wish. Yeah, I don't think in 5e it requires anything. It just all it says for components in 5e is V. This is verbal. I don't see any material components needed. So, yeah, I'm going to go with that. Because beyond just, let me read the thing. It's the mightiest spell a mortal creature can cast. By simply speaking aloud, you can alter the very foundations of reality in accord with your desires. Basic rule of the spell is to duplicate any other spell of 8th level or lower. You don't need to meet any requirements in that spell, including costly components. The spell simply takes effect. Alternatively, you can create one of the following effects of your choice. So, yeah, you can do pretty much any other 8th level or lower spell, or you can just do one of these several things, one of which is creating an item that is up to $25,000 gold in value. So, according to this, you can just make it. So, yeah, I would just be, like, churning out $25,000 jewelry, or, I don't know, what's something that's, like, $25,000 worth of, like, video cards. I'm trying to think of things that are, like, always in demand. Mordekainen's Magnificent Mansion. No property tax. Oh, interesting. Yeah, but you still got to upkeep that thing. That's the thing about mansions. You got to have a staff. Tiny Hut. Cast it whenever I see someone I don't want to talk to. Look for 3/5. I really should have looked through I should have looked through the 3/5 spells, because I just thought Wish, just because it was like, that seems to make the most sense. You want True Strike. All you need is Wish once per week. Yeah, for real. You wouldn't even need to do it that much. Plus, it's also a thing that I feel like I would do, like, for a while, and then eventually I would just, like, stop doing it. Because it's like, how much stuff can you have, you know? So straight up wish to redistribute all billionaires. Well, I don't even know if the spell Wish could be that powerful. You know what I mean? Plus, you got to get poor people on board for that idea. That's another one of the problems. When people say, like, oh, we need to tax the rich, it's like, well, okay, hold on. First, we need to all, as the poor people, agree that we should tax them. Because let's one thing at a time, you know? It's like I see Bernie Sanders say stuff like that, where he's like, we got to tax the rich. And it's like, Bernie, we got to agree that first. We got to agree with that first. We have to agree that the rich people should pay more. That's enough of an obstacle. Then we can talk about all that other stuff. That way I can cast a spell, but no one is all that impressed. Yeah. 25,000 gold pieces is about 250K. Whoa. That's wild as hell. So you'd be like churning out $1 million a week. Just casting Wish. Yeah. I mean, like, I feel like I'd cast it for like 3 or 4 weeks, and then I would just stop forever. I don't know that there would be any need for any more. It's just that I could wish stuff for other people. Yeah, that too. Then it would be like about taking care of everybody else first, right? Or second after that, right? Like, you got to put on your own oxygen mask before helping the person next to you. So yeah, I would just like use Wish to like pay off all of my debt and like get myself a nice house where everything's taken care of, pay for the property, and then help out other people. Pretty cool. Pretty cool, if you ask me. All right, so that is the answer. So thank you for the question. We have one last question for the evening, and then we've got a follow-up quickly. The last question of the evening is from John, and John asks, hi, Chaz. I've heard you mention that you're a fan of cricket before. Not sure if you saw, but Team USA recently upset Pakistan in the T20 World Cup. I did see. That has piqued my interest in the sport. Could you explain the difference between T20, ODI, and Test cricket? Much gratitude for your response. Thank you for the question, John. I'm excited to hear that you're interested in cricket. I recommend it, as I think it's a super dope sport. In fact, it's the second most popular sport globally behind soccer, and it's one of those that the U.S. is kind of on the end of the bus in learning about or enjoying. I think cricket's dope. I think it's certainly cooler than baseball in my opinion. And the US cricket team has only existed since 2019, or at least like only existed in these kind of global competitions since then, because we play the T20. We're still not in the ICC, but I mean there's only 12 teams in that. But we are participating in the T20 World Cup, and we did just upset Pakistan. So T20, ODI, and Test. So T20 cricket, first of all, in baseball you have innings. In cricket you have overs. And 6 pitches or 6 bowls rather, that's what they call it, is bowling. 6 bowls is an over. In T20 cricket or 2020 cricket, you each do 20 overs. So each team pitches 20 overs, and then the score is what the score is. It doesn't really matter like how many outs there are. Well, I mean, it does matter how many outs there are in terms of scoring, but it's just 20 overs and that's it. So if somebody just hits, that's what, 300 balls? Wait a minute. 20 overs. So it's 120 per team. So that's kind of like the regular, like shortened version of cricket, because it's like, a couple of hours. ODI cricket is single day cricket with 50 overs per side. That's 300 balls. So 50 overs. Yeah, that's 300 versus 120. So ODI cricket takes like all day. It's like, that's what ODI means, is one day international. So it's like 7 hours or something. And then Test cricket, I liken to like playoffs basketball or like playoff hockey, where it's not several games in a row per se, but in Test cricket, each side goes twice until everyone's out. And that can take a long time. So Test cricket is like 3 to 5 days. We were talking about it with my agent today, and it's funny because it's just like a spectator sport, where it's just. But what's cool about cricket, and I guess that baseball's kind of this way too, is that you don't necessarily have to be like traditionally athletic to be good at cricket. I mean, obviously, like these people are athletes, but not in the way that like you have to be athletic to play like basketball or football, in my estimation. Just because with cricket, it's like, dude, if you're a good batter, if you can just like crush 6s and 4s, you don't even need to run. You just stand there and blast it all day and, get your team like 200 runs or something. But I do think that it's cool that more people are kind of like at least aware of cricket now because of this, because, go USA. I think that's cool. And Pakistan's always been one of my favorite cricket teams, and they're a powerhouse. So the fact that we upset them, and it was in extra overs as well, so that's pretty cool. Pretty neat thing. Cricket, you got to know what a crumpet is to understand cricket. I'll never forget that scene as long as I live. Sorry to hear about that trip. Well, thank you for joining us, and hope that goes well. Hope you're doing well. Hey, from Hot Springs, North Carolina. Stop on your AT journey. Whoa, you're on the AT? Good for you. Best of luck. Stay safe out there. My buddy was going to do that once. You wish for a spacecraft a piece a day? What? The only thing I don't know about cricket is everything you said during yours and Justin's playthrough of Mirror's Edge. Oh, yeah. Well, I also explained it in Australian edition, right? Where there's that whole joke about, like, these go in, they go out, etc. It's a fun joke. Didn't know anything about cricket, but you do know how to make clotted cream. Rugby. Yeah, rugby's pretty cool, too, honestly. And there's another thing. I got to look this up. We'll talk about it next time. I think, like, the Danes, maybe the Norwegians, Somebody plays baseball real weird, and not in a bad way. I think it's cool. It's like they throw the ball up, like the pitcher is like right next to the batter, and they just throw it straight up, and then they hit, and then they run the bases differently. It's like European baseball, but it's like Northern European baseball. I don't know. Maybe somebody knows that. Anyway, thank you for the question. Hopefully that answers the question, John. And this last thing of the evening before we do a little chat is from Zach. It is a follow-up, and Zach says, "Hey Chaz, back on episode 64, I asked for advice on whether to name my Moon Circle Druid Bark Whalberg or Cornelius Compost." Yeah, I remember this. "I wanted you to know that I went with Bark Whalberg, or Barky Bark, several sessions in, and I have yet to regret my choice. Between music and film references, there's been no shortage of puns. I wanted to thank you in chat. Here's to 1,000 more episodes of Bard Advice. Thanks again." Well, I don't know about that, dude. 1,000 is a whole lot. I don't know if we'll let's get to 100 first, and then we'll talk. But I'm glad to hear that. It's nice to hear that that's what you went with and that you're enjoying it. It's real fun. Bark Whalberg. I thought that was it made me laugh out loud when I got the question. So I'm glad that you went with that one. Cornelius Compost is pretty funny, but I think that Bark Whalberg's clearly the superior of the two. So glad to hear it. Using Wish, you could build a starship piece a day and then wish for it to be assembled. Oh, interesting. Yeah, see, Avram's playing the long game with Wish. He's got like he's got like plans. Barky Bark and the Fungi Bunch. Alrighty, well, let's do some chat. Here we are. What do you want to talk about? We're going to talk about good things of the week. I had a pretty okay day, I suppose. Pretty good week. Had a good meeting with our agent today. And looking forward to the free RPG day. We're going to do like the little fan meetup thing in Jacksonville, so that'll be fun. You got news? Oh, lay it on me. Bring it. Lay it on the chat, pirate. Throw it out there. And while you're at it, everybody else, you have good things of the week? Trying to think of like anything specifically that was good this week other than just like, I don't know, things seem to be going pretty good. You're going to Michigan next month for 6 months. Yo, we're in Michigan. All your fences have been repaired. Nice. That's always good. We actually had a fence repair this week. That was a good thing. So delayed in getting here, but you're still so good looking. Yeah, no worries, man. Hey, if you're here, you're not late. Got that surgery Sunday. Just today I'm feeling like you haven't been kicked in the bits. Well, that's good. Yeah, that's never fun. Any kind of medical stuff is always tough. So, everyone said good energies for your heart surgery next Tuesday. Long echocardiogram today. Yes, everybody, please send their thoughts and or prayers to Ruby. Certainly, you're in my thoughts, Ruby. Hope that it goes well for you. It's always stressful, but, you know, you're a strong and a brave, so you'll be fine. But yeah, everybody send good vibes Ruby's way. Been deep cleaning your house with your wife, not necessarily good news. Well, that's one of those things like going to the dentist, right? Where it's like, well, it's not good, but it's good, you know? Started going to the gym, first week down, nice. Finished a map for your group's new campaign, and you're on track to finish at least one more before you play on Sunday. Okay, hold on a second. Huron Manistee National Forest and the Hiawatha National Forest for your archaeology stuff. All right, Pirate, you got to speak in English. You're saying all of these like archaeologist words. What city? Is that the name of the city? Well, Huron Manistee National Forest. What's that near? Hiawatha's a cool name. That's like a native name, yeah? A native word. Spine hates me, but it's been great for your mental health. Yeah, I feel that. That's like me doing the lawn. It's just like, oh man, my body is just like, this is terrible. But it's, you know, hey, the yard looks good. Finally got the squirrel out of your house. Nice. Whoa, 6 days. That sounds like a children's book, like the squirrel that wouldn't leave or something. How'd you get it out? Or, I mean, geez, 6 days. Maybe it just decided to leave. It was like, all right, I'm out of here. You get to work from home for 2 extra days next week. That's cool. Working from home's always good. Tawa City, bro. That is like where I lived. Pirate, are you kidding me? All right, so here's the cool thing about Michigan, everybody. It's a hand, right? Where I lived back in like 2011 was up just above the knuckle, right on Lake Huron. Oh, Sable. Yeah. That's Tawas City. Where I lived was in Oscoda, which was actually like 15, 20 minutes north of Tawas City. But Tawas City's where I worked, at the Walmart in Tawas City. Yo, you should go there and see if anybody's working there that I know. They have good white water around there. Gets a look at her eye and plays that Black Velvet song before she starts cleaning. You were gifted a membership for this channel. Yeah, that is a good thing. And thank you again for that. It was, I think, Amanda and Purple Worm. That's appreciated. Those gifted subs are not only good for us, but it's good for the people. You know, it gives you access to these cool... You know what's so weird about that, Pirate? When I was leaving Oscoda, now this was 10, 12 years ago now. Hey, another thing that makes me feel old. When we were leaving Oscoda, I heard not long after we had left that when they were up there doing some like road construction, that they came across like a whole bunch of native stuff in the ground. And I don't know whether it was like a burial, like I don't know if it was bodies, or like skeletons, I should say, or if it was like stuff, but I remember hearing about that, and I wonder about that. That is crazy. Please, yeah, please post stuff, Pirate. I'd love to see it, because we lived right up there, right on Lake Huron, only for like 6 months or so. Oh, yes, and speaking of the Discord, River did post a link there, so join the Discord if you're not already in there. I'd like to hang out in there. There's a lot of cool stuff. We're building a little bit of a community, so it's cool. But yeah, that is... super dope, Pirate. I'll be excited to hear about that. All right. Well, gang, I'm going to probably cut things short a few minutes early this week just because I've got stuff to do. And it's, you know, definitely not going to play XDefiant or anything. I mean, I do have I've got some editing to do. So also heads up to everybody, there's not going to be an episode this week. And I don't know if will be one next week, but I'll confirm that next podcast. I'm talking about the D&D editions, by the way. Not going to be an episode Sunday. And maybe not the next one, but definitely the one after that. I know that for sure. And this podcast will be back next week, and we'll keep posting the Baldur's Gate 3 stuff as well. Okay, so here we are at the end. It does usually fly by. It's always appreciated, all of these people showing up. Let's talk about the things that we do before we like to get out of here. We like to remind everyone of the email again, which is bardadvice@gmail.com. It also looks like bardadvice. If you have any questions, concerns, complaints, criticisms, critiques, send them over there, bardadvice@gmail.com. That's also inclusive of any kind of follow-ups to questions that you might have asked in the past, or any kind of like cool stories, or just like generally neat things that you want to send over, as well as any kind of submissions for Art Corner. And if you want to get some merch, you can do so over at manshorts.com, as well as krakendice.com. You can get yourself a Manshorts dice set. And if you want to contribute to anything that I'm doing musically, you can do so directly via PayPal, Cash App, or Venmo, all of which are Yazik, YAHZICK. Whoops, didn't mean to do that. Okay, so we will be back same Bard time, same Bard channel next week, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Friday on the Manshorts YouTube channel. The audio for this podcast, as always, will be made available tomorrow at 12 p.m. noon Eastern Standard Time. I hope that everybody has a fantastic weekend and an even better week, and we will see you next time.